pumps. If you're new to this space, welcome to Learn a Pazuma. This is brought to you by myself, Erin Peterschick, and my partner in crime, Darren Nerland, who is himself driving back from sunny Spokane, where I'm calling in from today, where he was on a few days of vacation. So I do let him off the hook every now and then. And then you get me running all the tech stuff for you. This is kind of an outgrowth of our Learnapalooza event. Learnapalooza is a 6 years old event that we've been bringing regional L&D and allied field professionals together to kind of share and engage in community building. This year we are planning to do one. It's now been moved to September because of COVID-19, so we hope that you'll join us there. You guys are the reason we do this, and we want to hold space for you as a community, and we're continuing to just monitor the situation. So we'll keep you updated on that. If you're on our newsletter list, you should be getting lots of information. And just to let everybody know, we are recording today. Feel free to, mute and unmute as you see fit. The recording primarily shows the speaker and the slide content that she's sharing. So use the chat, do anything and everything you can to be engaged in so far as you feel like being engaged. It's best if you view, using Zoom, it's best if you view your screen in gallery view. I mentioned that a few folks are coming in under my name because I screwed up the link. And so feel free to use those 3 meatballs on your own photo, little icon there to change your name, maybe put in your geographic location, your pronouns, the company you're from, any of those little tidbits you want to share with this community. And we'd love to see your faces, but totally understand if you don't want to be on video and want to be a voice, that's okay too. We've got a couple of buttons in Zoom. You're probably familiar with this by now. You can applaud or do the thumbs up, and by all means, please do use the chat. So with that, I want to talk to you a little bit about who we're going to be hearing from today. You'll see the lovely ladies on the screen. We've got Teresa Franco-Macaro and Erna, whose last name I'm not going to even remotely try and pronounce because I will butcher it, because Erna comes to us all the way from Iceland. So Teresa is a longtime friend of Learnapalooza. She is a gifted storyteller. She facilitates for Dale Carnegie. And about 2 years ago, she kind of came blazing out of nowhere, because this is a regional local L&D conference, and she did a session on storytelling for Learnapalooza a couple of years ago, and it was literally one of the highest rated sessions. People just wanted more and more. Last year, she came back and helped people kind of frame their story through the lens of superhero, because that was last year's theme. And so it's just a really compelling tool to have in your toolkit. We know that business storytelling is increasingly valued in the work that we do. We as L&D professionals, of course, are often in the front of the classroom or on the other side of the camera telling our own stories or telling stories that relate to the content that we're trying to deliver. And so I hope that you get a lot out of today. And the fabulous Erna, who I hope will say hi in a moment, is also with Why Story Works. She's a marketing and advertising professional who believes in amplifying story through powerful graphic images and the storytelling through print and things like that. So hi, Erna. Hi, T. Hopefully, T, you're back.
Hi. Yes, I am back. I am back. I am back. Yes, indeed. And I am pulling up my screen now. So thank you for that, Erin. Can you all see where I am on my screen now is, you should see the story starts prompt. Do you all see that?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So here's what we're going to do now. We're just going to, remember I said in a moment, we're going to start with a story. So we know that we are in the midst of the greatest story never told, this COVID-19, and what the heck are we doing? So with today's seminar, it's all about giving you an opportunity to find tools to tell the right story at the right time to the right audience to get the desired results. So we'll start off today by just having people introduce themselves one at a time, and here's your task. All you do is you say your name, you say where you're from, and which one of those 3 pictures represents your new normal. So Erin is on the back end as our producer right now. I'll be advancing the slides as we move forward. And so she's going to kind of call on the people as they go next, as you raise your hand and you want to get out there to say. So I'll start, and then we'll let Erna go, and that'll give 2 people at least to model it. And then we'll pick it up from there with everybody introducing themselves. So remember, it's your name, where you're from, and which one of those photos represents your new normal. Take about 20 seconds. So hello, everybody. My name is Teresa Franco-McCarrow. I'm the chief storyteller at Why Story Works, and I'm located right here in Seattle, Washington. And the photo that best represents my new normal right now is the picture on the far left. You see those ballerinas on the cupcake? Those are indicative of my family and my friends and all that's near and dear and important to me. So in this time of COVID, I feel I need to connect with them. And even though I can't touch them, I want to connect with them. So that's my story. Erna, do you want to take it from here?
Perfect. Yeah, I would say ballerinas, but like I'm like right now I'm on the timing because I see the yellow guy, and you know, Friday we're gonna start using the masks all the time, and so I'm just waiting for more news to come. So I'm on the clock.
Okay, and you're from where? Where are you from?
Yes, I'm Erna, and I come from Iceland. Moved here a year and a half ago, and I live in Kirkland.
Yes, nice. Okay, so we're going to pass the ball. Let's say I don't have the list of who's raising their hand. Erin, do you want to call on people next? Erin is going. Okay, Erin.
Sure. Yeah, which Erin is it? This Erin can go. I actually think, hi, my name is Erin Petershick. I work for the Boeing company. I'm calling in from Spokane, Washington. And I feel like the middle picture really represents me because I'm really excited about sort of the journey that we're on. I actually don't think we're in anything that's normal yet. And I think that will continue to evolve as a definition, and our words to talk about what we're going through will continue to evolve. So I'm gonna call on Emily.
Okay.
From Bellingham.
Hello, everybody. I'm Emily, and I'm from Bellingham.
Hi.
And I also identify with the middle picture, to be continued, because it kind of looks like a sign at a crossroads, and there's really very little else in that picture except the unknown.
Right.
And that feels like my normal right now. So I'm just gravitating toward that picture right now.
For sure. All right. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah.
How about you, Danielle Grandfar, since you already chimed in chat, and I haven't seen you in ages, and I'm just so happy you're here.
Okay, can you hear me? I think I'm unmuted now.
We hear you.
Great. Great. So yes, I'm Danielle Grandfar. I live in Capitol Hill, Seattle. So I'm in the midst of all the chaos right now in Seattle.
Oh my God.
I'm actually on Pine Street, 5 blocks from the CHOP, so if you've been watching the news. I'm originally, I grew up in Spain, and but I have one American parent, so that's my background. And in terms of, I work for LHH, Lee Hecht Harrison. And in terms of the pictures, I actually related to the one, Teresa, you did the ballerinas, but interestingly, completely different approach. So I saw the ballerinas and thought, okay, they represent flexibility, being able to dance, resilience, stretching yourself. So I think that kind of, with all that's going on right now, I feel like those are some of the qualities that kind of stood out for me.
Nice. Who are we calling on next?
Do I have to call on somebody?
Somebody else want to jump out there?
I'll go. This is Steph Collier.
Hi, Steph.
Hey, everyone. So Steph Collier, phoning in from Bellevue, Washington. I work for SAP, and the image that I feel most represents my new normal is the middle one, the to be continued. And it reminds me of back in the day in the 80s when I used to watch certain shows that would have cliffhangers and you'd have to wait till the following week to see what
Yes.
happened. I sort of feel like my world is just that. Are we going to
That's
be
right.
back in school? Or are we going to be back in the office? And
You got it.
what are those cliffhangers? So that's how I feel.
Thanks, Steph.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I love that.
Who's next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
Amy. I'm in Seattle, near North Ballard area. And the picture that most resonates with me is the to be continued, in that planning life right now feels like a real challenge, and everything feels to be continued and uncertain.
Yes, indeed. Okay, who's next?
I'll go.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Andrew McMasters. I am originally from Philadelphia, but I've been here in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle area for about 20, 30 years now. And the picture for me is the middle one, and for different reasons. It feels like it's a line drawing. So there's still a lot more that can be drawn behind it of where you are or where you're going. So for me, it was more about the fact that it's not complete. That was what drew me to that picture.
There you go. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Who's next?
I'll go.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Sheila Seiden, and I'm in Seattle, Washington.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi. I really resonate with this guy in a coat looking at his watch, because in year 2 of my business, and I've had to make a lot of changes, and they're good changes though, so I kind of would like to put a watch on this ballerina over here and see myself pirouetting into the future.
For sure. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Hi, this is Amy Solis. I'll go next.
Hi, Amy Solis. How are you?
I'm doing well. You're not seeing my picture because, frankly, I look scary today.
It's okay. It's okay.
I would have to say the middle one for me, I just feel like, it's already been said, but like everything is in the air and nothing can get accomplished. And I have to say, I'm working on it. I'm working on it, but it's not something that is very solid. It does not feel good. So
everything's in flux.
Yeah, exactly. I'm at the to be continued, except for with the cupcake one. I have to tell you, freshman 15 has nothing on the COVID 30. So
yeah, there we go. There we go.
I'm sure everybody's feeling that in some way, shape, or form. So anyway, thank you for sharing, everyone.
Yeah. Who's next? Who haven't we heard from?
Hi,
this is Sherry. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I'm Lisa. I'm currently in Newcastle, Washington. And like many, I relate to the middle picture just because I'm in transition. I think we all are. But I'm transitioning within careers. So I'm kind of in the limbo of trying to figure out where my next place will be at.
Got it. Yeah, it's transitions everywhere. That's right. Anyone else who haven't we heard from yet?
This is Sherry McInnes. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sherry. Yeah.
Hi. And I'm in Bellevue, Washington. And I think that the one that I most identify with is the one to be continued in the center. Because 2 weeks ago, when I was working away on my Microsoft project, I got notice that, because of the virus, we are closing down your project and it'll end on June 30th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
However, really good news. This has never happened to me before.
Yeah.
My resume put together. I got resumes out within a couple days. Within a couple days, I got calls from 2 recruiters, and I accepted an offer and start on July 1.
Wow!
Congrats.
Also at Microsoft in a different group.
You go, girl. You go, girl. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, it was kind of scary, but also exciting.
Exciting. Who else? Who else haven't we heard from?
I'll go.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. I was between I'm Janie Wallach, and I'm an instructional designer in Seattle. And I was between the middle picture and the one on the right, but I think I'm going to go with the guy in the trench coat because a lot of people don't realize in 2012, the Mayan calendar ended.
And we entered what they call the time of no time. And back in 2012, I said, this doesn't feel any different than any other time to me, you know. Well, you know what? I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it. It really does feel like no time. Yeah. And I have my next gig lined up. I had it lined up in April. Yep. You know? And I'm waiting and I'm waiting.
Where is
and
it?
I'm waiting.
It's all gone. Yes. We can all relate to that. Thank you. How many folks have we still to have sharing left? Do you know, Erin?
Looks like, I'm sorry, did we hear from Elizabeth or Kelly?
Not yet. This is Elizabeth Soul.
Hi, Elizabeth.
I'm in Woodinville and I work for Girl Scouts of Western Washington.
Okay.
And I feel like the picture on the right because it seems like you need to keep a schedule and always watching the calendar, wondering what day it is, and meeting invites and saying, I'll see you tomorrow. Wait, no, that's 2 days. Wait, I don't know.
Yep. To be continued.
Time has become elusive.
Yes, it has. And then we have one more, right, Erin? One more?
And I think Tamir is joining us. So we'll have a couple more folks if you want to move on.
Okay, so we're going to just move on. So basically what you all did is you just did a story. So, okay, goodbye. We're good. What you just went through is the basics of story structure. So what we're going to take you through today is why is story so powerful? And the thing is, our brains on story actually, they light up. We've been telling stories for thousands and thousands of years, and our brains will recall and learn 22 times better when we tell a story. We've been telling stories since 15 to 13,000 BC, and our brains will resonate on a visual story 60,000 times faster, and our stories will keep us safe. In other words, it will tell us, wake up, and the brain is going to activate. The amygdala is going to activate, and it's going to say, pay attention, because this could be dangerous, and you do not want to fall prey. So many, many moons ago, when we were evolving on the prairies and in the Serengeti, we didn't evolve and survive because we were the biggest and the strongest. We evolved and survived because we were the fastest with our brains. Our brains kept up. So that's why our brains love stories, because we learned through stories. And what does this mean for today? So for today, as you look now, fast forward to today, we have over 700,000 Google searches happening every 60 seconds. Wow. We're inundated with over 100,000 digital words daily. We've got people sitting on things for only about 35 seconds. And all of these ads are coming our way. So what does this tell us about story? Well, it tells us that the stories, if they're told well, and if they're told with intentionality, they can help cut through all this clutter. And that's what we're going to teach you how to do today. We're going to teach you how to tell a story in 2 minutes or less. We're going to give you basic story structure, which you guys already did, by the way. And we're going to teach you how to be intentional. Because who here has ever, in the chat box, just, maybe with a thumbs up or something, ever said something and then somebody took it the totally wrong way and you're like, that's not what I meant at all? Thumbs up, thumbs down. We seen that in the chat, Erin? I can't see the chat box. Yep. Are you able to see that?
Jeff said yes.
Yes. Okay.
Sheila says yes. So,
So the point of this is, if you're able to be in charge of the narrative, you're going to be able to have some agency. So let's take a look at why story works. So on the left-hand side, you see sometimes our stories are outdated and we need to change them up. And look at the Aunt Jemima. Who here, maybe put in the chat bar, has heard about what is going on with Aunt Jemima? Anybody know what's going on with Aunt Jemima? Thumbs up. Yeah. So basically what's happening with the Aunt Jemima brand is they realized many moons ago in the late 1800s that if they put a fictitious character and modeled her off of the mammy in the minstrel shows, it will help them sell pancakes. And don't you think now maybe they need to pivot? They need to let that story go because it's not serving their brand. just like the Uncle Ben's brand. It's not serving them. And here is one that's very, very new. Look at this little yellow nano car. This is a car that was built and designed for people that live in the country of India. And the marketers were like, yeah, we're going to have this awesome car. And it's going to be really inexpensive, and it's going to zip around, and it's not too big. And with everybody in the middle class right now, they're going to be able to have their discretionary income and buy this car. Guess what their tagline was for their car? Nano, the cheapest car on earth.
Oh, God.
Right? How many cars do you think they sold? Right? So there's an example of the story not working for them. So regardless of what story you tell, people are going to make an impression about it. So take a look at these two icons on the right. Oprah Winfrey. Who here hasn't heard of the aha moment, right? Or what I know for sure. Or Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. These women know how to control the narrative. So what we're going to take you through today is understanding, if you know what your audience is feeling, and if you know what it is they might need, you can avoid death by story. So in the chat bar, who here has ever experienced death by story? Raise your hand. Green checks coming in. Yes, yes. Somebody come off mute or just share us in like 10 seconds. What does death by story mean to you?
I mean, I'll take that one.
Andrew,
the most of the time it's the idea of the story that just continues to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And it's like, and I went to the store and then I bought eggs and then I bought bread and then I brought this and I brought, and it just keeps going to the point where you're like, oh, can this stop at some point soon? Yeah. So
Thank you.
It's that.
Thank you.
No
I'm going to
purpose.
poke my eyeballs out. Can you get to the story? Can you get to the point? Can we move on?
Why? Yeah.
Why should we care? For sure. So some of the key things here is, and you can, there's so much research out there on this, and I can put this when we send off the deck, you all can have links to it. But if you're able to understand the emotion that your audience wants to feel and the emotion about where they currently are, you can tell a story that might move them to a new camp. And that's what we're going to teach you how to do today, along with giving you some basic story structure. So I guarantee if you're not intentional about the story you tell, somebody's going to put some meaning on it, and maybe you're not going to like it. So let's take a look at what are some of the emotions that come in all really good stories. So this here is also on a handout, and let me just explain the way this works. These are the 5 neurological responses inherent in any good story. Now, I got this research and I developed this theory after taking a look at lots of different research and ideas and thoughts around neuroscience and what happens to the brain when we hear a really good story. And we all know that stories need to have really compelling characters. We need to have a conflict. We need to solve a problem, and we need to figure out what happened and what's the point, just like what Andrew was saying. So if you know, for example, your audience is maybe feeling some fear, like we're all feeling right now in the middle of COVID, you might want to tell a story that's going to focus your audience and release cortisol so that they can get some clarity. So let's take a look at the first one here. This is what happens when our brains are in fear. So a lot of you in the very beginning of the story, you see on the left-hand side, when you were talking about your story starts, you were talking about some things that are happening with fear. So who here, and again, you can put in the chat bar, has experienced or felt fear? I mean, I'm going to raise my hand for sure. I bet every single person, right? Yeah, for sure. And so that fear is going to release the chemical cortisol. And cortisol is the stress hormone. And is all stress bad? Somebody, is all stress bad? Not necessarily, right? You can have stress that is good stress, which is called eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S, or you can have stress which is bad, which is distress, which causes a lot of anxiety, and it causes people to be like, oh, I can't relate, I can't move on. So what we might need to do, if people are feeling fearful, We need to slow down our pacing just a little bit, maybe modulate our voices, and maybe change up the pacing a little bit, right? So did you notice how maybe you're leaning in? Maybe you talk a little softer. And you also tell a story that's going to help people focus. Who here is really tired of getting, things in their inbox about how they can be more productive during this time, right? Yeah, I don't need that. What I need is to be able to just relax if I don't want to be super productive today. So the next thing that can be released, if we're feeling, a lot of us might be feeling lonely right now. How might we be feeling lonely? Why might we be feeling lonely? Somebody come off of mute and just share. How might you be feeling lonely now? Why?
Because we're isolated.
Yes, that's right. We're not with anybody and we're feeling we need to be filled up. We need to feel that love and that attention. So one of the chemicals, if you know your audience is feeling really lonely, you might want to tell a love story so that you can release dopamine. And dopamine is that chemical in the brain that is associated with addiction. So that's why sometimes you see a lot in sales. People will do, sex sells. It's very, and dopamine only stays in the bloodstream for about 90 seconds. So that's why we want to keep, you see a lot of times where people will tell stories that are going to release dopamine because they want people to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. So let's take a look at the next emotion. Here we have despair. So why might we be feeling despair right now? Anybody?
I think the issues around racism are a cause for despair.
For sure. Yeah, and like a lot of you said in the middle photo there with the to be continued, it's like, what am I supposed to do now? How am I supposed to feel like it's going to be okay? So if you find your audience or your people are feeling really nervous and anxious, you might want to tell a story that's going to release serotonin to give people hope. And serotonin is that hormone that, kind of sometimes after I eat a big bowl of pasta, I'm like, right? Relax. So this one here on the left-hand side, I don't know if any of you had seen this photo before of the doctor with the dog, and this one is really our empathy hormone, this oxytocin. So many times when we feel misunderstood or we feel that people don't understand our point of view or where we're coming from, we need to release and talk through and have an empathy story. Oxytocin is also that hormone that is released when women are nursing their babies. It's the same thing. So if you want your audience to feel understood, tell an empathy story. A lot of times leaders will tell empathy stories to say, hey, I'm just like you. Joe Biden tells a lot of empathy stories. And this last one here, and this kind of alludes to what you were talking about, Erin, about what's happening in the world right now with BLM and Black Lives Matter or the Me Too movement. So many things are going on in the world right now. And if we're feeling stuck, or if your team members are feeling stuck, they might need a story that's going to activate adrenaline so that they can feel empowered to change. And so adrenaline is going to be that call to action for change. And that's why you might see a lot of times CEOs or sales leaders at the end of a big convention will give a call to action story, or go forth and conquer, right? That's the idea behind that. So we've had the opportunity to go through and see all of these different emotions. So if our audience is needing to feel a certain way, we're going to pull out a story that's going to help us get our audience to the next spot. And that's the power of story. We want to elicit some type of a change. One of the key things we want to ask ourselves is, what is it that I want my audience to think, feel, and or do differently? Do I want them to calm down? Well, then maybe I need to tell a certain type of story. So that's the idea. So what we're going to do next, so we're going to pause for a minute here. Does anybody have a question? Anybody? Okay. Are we okay to move on? Because now we're going to get to how to do it. So now we know why we want to do it. Now let's practice how we would do it. So we're going to move forward now to, we're going to teach you how to do the basics of story structure. So there is also a handout that you have, which is a chunk outline. And that's something that you can use as we're going through this to jot down some of your ideas. So the very thing you want to do, let's just say you want to tell a 2-minute story. And the reason we use 2 minutes is, again, think about that dopamine, right? It's every 90 seconds or so. And again, John Medina, I don't know if you've ever heard of John Medina. He read a wonderful book called Brain Rules. And one of his 12 tenets is that the brain does not pay attention to boring things. So if you want to activate your audience, tell no more than 3 2-minute stories so that you end up with about 9 minutes or so of a story, between 6 and 9 minutes, and then be done. Just like, that's enough. Because you could fall into death by story. And about every 9 minutes or so, people need to change. So that's just a little tidbit. So we're just going to practice on telling a 2-minute story. So the first thing we need to do is you've got to think about where were you, what were you doing? This is going to set your character, and it's going to set the setting. All right. The next 20 to 30 seconds is we have what is called an inciting incident. What's an inciting incident? I'm going to ask my partner in crime, Mr. Andrew McMasters, who is an improv aficionado who's done a lot around story. What is an inciting incident, Andrew?
After there has been a setup, it's basically the change.
Yes.
The thing that suddenly alters.
Yes, something alters. And then as a result, what happens? And then as a result, something happens. And then as a result, what finally happens? That gets us to our climax. So this is where you're going to get into some of the details, but not too many details, because if we get mired in too many details, we're like, oh my God, where's the story going? I can't stand it. I got to get out of here. So you want to make it specific, because specific is terrific. So if you're not specific enough, people aren't going to listen to you. And if you're too specific, it's going to be like, where in the heck is this story going? Get to the point already. So that's the middle. And then we get to the end. And the end is the resolution. So this is, again, 20 to 30 seconds here. In other words, what did you learn as the person going through this story so that you can impart something to the audience? In other words, why should the audience care about the story you're telling? So that's it. Where were you? What were you doing? What changed? What happened as a result? What happened because of that? What finally happened? And then what's the point? So that's story structure. So what we're going to do in a moment, I'm going to tell a story, about a 2-minute story. We're going to have you listen for all of those things that we were talking about. Where was I? What was I doing? What changed? What was the big problem? What problem did I solve? And why do you care? And then we'll give you some thinking, writing time to try your own, and then maybe we'll hear from one, okay? So who has a question about what's happening next? Anybody?
So we're listening for where, what was the second one? Why?
Yes. We're listening to where was I? What was I doing? What changed? What happened as a final result? And then what did I learn? Why do you care? Okay. So are we ready? And if you want, you can, there's the handout, the chunk outline handout that you all have. You can jot down your notes on that, or you could use that when you have practice for your own story. Okay. So it's 25 years ago. I am in New York City working for the New York City Board of Education, doing social issues outreach theater for young people. And I have the summer off. And I'm not married, I don't have a significant other, and I am not happy. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get the heck out of here. I'm getting out of Dodge. And so I say, I'm going to Seattle on vacation. And people are like, have you ever lived there? No. Do you know anybody there? No. Do you have a job there? No. And 25 years ago to the day, I remember because it was during this time of the year. And I'm thinking, where's the sun? Why isn't it going down? And it was the middle of the summer solstice. And I said, okay, I'll stay for a week. And I got a bunch of offers lined up for the summer. And I said, okay, I'll stay for the summer. And then something happened. August 4th, I met a man on a boat, a hydroplane boat races. And I'm like, oh my God, this might not be that bad. And by October, I had quit my job over the phone. And fast forward 25 years later, a husband and 2 kids, a car, a dog. I am still here in Seattle. So I told everybody I came out to Seattle on vacation and I never left. So fast forward to today, I'm now running not one, but two businesses, trying to help my husband run his home construction business as well as consulting business, Why Story Works, in the middle of a pandemic and raising two kids, a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. And I'm thinking, what are you, nuts? And so what I realized is stuff happens. No matter what, stuff happens. And I can't control it. I can't control anything. The only thing I can really control is my response to it. And so I decided, hey, Sister Lovejoy, why don't you start pivoting? Why don't you start doing something a little bit different? So I, got on some of the webinars and I started watching and reaching out to people like Andrew McMasters and Aaron. I'm like, okay. And I started talking to Erna with some of these videos I'm doing on LinkedIn. And here we are today as the world premiere of Why Story Works, first installment of a webinar series on storytelling. So my advice to you is, when it's raining and you feel like it's pouring and there's no place to go, just remember, you can't control it. All you can do is control your response to it. So, what's your story? That's my story. All right, so that's that. So I'm going to pause now. Who here would like to share? That was about a little bit over 2 minutes. Where was I? What was I doing? What was the character and the setting?
New York to Seattle.
Okay. What changed?
No more New York.
Yeah, like get the heck out of Dodge, right? What was the final climax?
Meeting someone and deciding to stay.
Yeah, yeah. And so what was the resolution? What is the reason behind? Like, what did you learn?
Shit happens,
Go with
and only
Go with it.
control yourself.
Yeah, you can only control yourself. So thinking about some of those emotions, what was some of the emotions that maybe got triggered in you? Anybody?
I relate because I moved here from New York too.
Yeah, so some empathy for sure. What else was triggered in somebody? Anybody?
I think there's definitely a feeling of when you talk about meeting someone, there's that sense of like, oh, love, right?
Love
So
and
you feel
hope.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, love and hope. And this could happen to me and this could be okay, right?
Your sense of adventure was very exciting.
Yes, so the adventure, the adrenaline, like get to it, right? A call to action so you too can pivot and change your life. Yeah? Anything else?
The importance of focus and the clarity that can come from it.
Yes. So in other words, hey, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. And you can't control it anyway, right? All right. So you've got the tools now. So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to take a little bit of a moment for thinking and writing time. So you all have your chunk outline in front of you, right? You all have your chunk outline? It's the handout, right? It should look like this. Mine's filled out because those are my notes.
Holler if you don't have it.
Anybody need the chunk outline? Okay, this is a tool that I love to use whenever I'm creating a story or even a webinar like this, and we're gonna, you can have this and use this tool. You want to think about in the upper left-hand box, what is the emotional response you're looking for? So for me, it was an empathy story for sure, and a call to action and hope. So kind of run through that in your mind, and what is your opening? In other words, where were you? What were you doing? And then move into what changed. So that's your first pillar, and some dots, some ideas around that. Your middle pillar is what is all of that stuff? What's the final climax? And then ultimately, what do you want us to get out of it? So it's simple story structure.
And just for anybody who doesn't have it, I popped the document into the chat. It should be downloadable. So just ping me if you still can't download and I will figure it out.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna put some time on the clock so that people have the chance, because what we're gonna do in a moment, we're gonna give you time to write through some of your ideas, and then we're gonna get a couple volunteers and we're gonna hear their story and debrief it a little bit, okay? So I'm going to put about a minute or so on the clock. And if there's anybody that is dying to be our volunteer, put your name in the chat box or raise your hand, and Erin will take a look at that. And we also have, if nobody volunteers, I have somebody that I can call on.
Okay, I'll email some folks. If you don't have the grid handy in the handout, maybe T, can you show the emotion grid for folks while they're filling out their chunk outline?
Oh, sure. Let me go back to that.
It's just a nice reminder. Okay, I'll email a couple of folks I've heard from. Sorry, guys.
What did you learn? In other words, why should the audience care about it? So who needs a little bit more time?
More time.
More time. Got it.
Definitely.
Definitely. Okay. All right. How are we doing with timing? Who needs more time? Okay. So it looks like, I know we have one volunteer, Amy I'm not saying, it's Solis. Did I say it right, Amy?
You're close. It's Solis.
Solis, thank you.
I married into it.
Okay,
So.
and then we have Andrew McMasters as well, who is going to share. And I think we'll have time to hear too, because they should be 2 minutes or less. So I'm going to advance the, let me go back to advance the screen so that we've got this one. Whoopsie, sorry. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the chat so that we can see you.
Oh, I don't have my visual today.
That's okay, Amy. You don't need it. We can hear you. That's okay. So whenever you're ready, Amy, hang on, let me pause, and I'm going to put my timer on for 2 minutes. Now, I may or may not interrupt you. I'm going to try not to interrupt you, but if your story is going all over the place and I need to kind of rein you in, I might just say, Amy, and then ask you a question or two, okay?
That sounds great.
Okay, Amy. So where were you? What were you doing?
Okay, so about 7 years ago, I was in Gig Harbor with my parents, and my dad had come down with cancer for the 4th time, and it had gotten to the point where it was really bad. And the hard part about being in the hospital is that they do not want to tell you definitively what you're looking at.
Yep.
So I finally got all of my siblings around,
got
my parents there, and the doctor comes in, and I said, tell me, what are we looking at? I said, I cannot tell you that. Only God can tell you that. I said, yes, I understand that.
Right.
But God is not physically here to tell me how much time I have. And I have to do a lot of planning. Now, I'm the youngest of 5. And I'm the one that they go to. So I don't know why, but it's just, they just do.
So what's the conflict? Are the siblings saying, Amy, what are you
doing? They're
doing?
just all staring at me.
Oh, so they're frozen.
They're waiting. Yes, somebody do something. So, Amy, do it.
Yeah.
So I finally said to the doctor, 3 weeks, 3 months, what are we looking at? And he said, you'll be lucky if you have 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
So I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, do you understand what the doctor just said? He said, not really. And I said, well, Dad, you're at the end of your journey and we've got to make some decisions going forward. And they've got to happen fast. And he said, I'll make the first decision. And I said, okay. He goes, I want Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh my God.
I said, okay, let's go get KFC. So
begin to wrap it up now. You got about 30 seconds. Keep going.
That was my segue into.
You got it.
There are things that can be very sad in your life, But when you really need push comes to shove, you try to find the lightheartedness in it.
Yep.
And that will see you through, no matter what it is.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
KFC, even if it's KFC.
Can we give her some love and some hand claps in the chat? Let's give her some hand claps.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh my gosh. So let's debrief this real quickly. So where was Amy and what was she doing? Where was she? Somebody.
Was it Gig Harbor or Oak Harbor? A harbor.
Gig Harbor.
Yeah.
Big Harbor.
And where was she? Where was she, Jenny? Jenny Wallach. Where was she?
Oh, Janie.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Janie. Sorry.
She was in the hospital.
Yes, that's right. So, Sherry, I believe there's a Sherry we have on the line, right? What changed for her?
The news about her dad.
Yes, that's right. And then what happened as a result of that?
Wanting to pin down the doctor.
Yes, that's right. Until what finally happened? Somebody who hasn't shared yet. What finally happened? Somebody. Maybe Danielle. All right, maybe not Danielle.
Sorry, I'm muted. I was muted.
That's okay, Danielle. What
Sorry,
finally
I'm muting
happened?
myself.
Yeah.
So finally, she got the doctor to give her a number, and then that made her, I guess, talk to her dad and say, okay, so what do we do with this time?
Yeah,
left?
let's get the chicken. Let's get the chicken, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's the resolution here? What does she want us all to know? What did she learn, and what do we learn as a result?
That even out of the bleak news or bleak events or just, hard times, it's really important to kind of stop and be reminded of the ways that you can be light in that time.
Yes. And let's think about some of the emotions that were triggered in us. I don't know about you, but I absolutely felt some empathy, and I felt hope. Even though it was a sad story about her dad dying, it was hilarious with the Kentucky Fried Chicken that's what he's asking for, right? And those are the details. She was specific, and it was terrific with that specificity. If she had just said, and then my dad wanted something to eat, that wouldn't have landed as much as he asked for Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? And remember when she was talking in the very beginning, and I interrupted her. I apologize, Amy, but I said, so what's the conflict? It's kind of like what Andrew was saying before. We got to get in quickly to that inciting incident. What's changed so we can get on with this conflict, because that's what makes great story. If you don't have conflict, you just have a narrative. And narratives are nice, but they're not that great of a story. It's like, who cares, right?
I heard it described once as, like there's tension, and then we feel that kind of viscerally, and then we're looking to sort of release that tension, whether it's in comedy or story, where, like we have this human need for sort of you've set me up and I'm feeling tension, and then what's the release of that tension?
Yeah, the beginning, the middle, the end. It's basic story structure. We've been telling stories like this for thousands and thousands of years. So I think, would you like to hear one more? I think we have time for one more. Do we have time for one more, Erin? Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, so I think Erin McMasters is going to jump out there and tell us a story. So Erin, sorry,
Andrew.
Not Andrew. It's Andrew, not Erin. Let me reset my timer.
Okay.
Sorry. I got all these things happening in my head. Okay, Andrew, whenever you're ready. Where were you?
My story is actually when I was in graduate school at the University of Washington, getting my master's degree in drama. And I am the lead in a play. And we've been going over the same scene over and over again. And I just can't seem to understand what I need to do to make it right.
Right.
And so we start running through the scene again. It was very physical. I had to jump from a 5th floor balcony to a 4th floor.
Oh my
I had
God.
to swing down to a 3rd floor balcony. I had to jump down to a 1st floor.
Oh
So
my gosh.
I'm climbing up and down this set over and over again. And I get finished and I look at the director and he says, "Do it again." And I've been doing it 4 times now. And I looked at him, I said, "What do you want? What do you want me to do?" And he says, "I want you to do it again." So what I realized was that I had to do it over and over again in order to learn what it was going to take for me to be successful in this position. So for me, it's a story I keep remembering during this time that we're going through. Maybe these are things we got to go through, and we got to figure out what we learned from it so that we can come out of it the other side.
So Andrew, I'm gonna jump in here for a minute. You've got some more time. So what is one thing? if you had to say, what is the one thing you keep having to learn over and over again in these last 3 months? What is it? You're like, oh, what is it?
That sometimes you can overthink what something is.
How so?
You have to put your body in motion to make it happen.
You?
In other words,
like me or you? How did you, Andrew McMasters, have to rethink that again? What happened?
For myself, I will take notes on Post-it notes, and then I will put them up everywhere.
Yeah.
It takes me then a month to be able to pull the Post-it notes off and put them together into cohesive action and take a first step.
So for you, you're having to relearn over and over again how to be productive during this time.
Yep.
Okay. So how did that relate back to what you learned when you were in UW grad school?
That I can continue to think that I'm doing it correctly.
Yep.
However, I've got to actually get forward motion. I have to do something to learn.
There you go. So what's your advice to us? If you had to, what do you advise?
My advice is sometimes we just have to get active. Sometimes you have to find out what that first step would be.
And what's the benefit?
Take the first step.
And what's the benefit, Andrew, when we get active? What's going to happen as a result?
We're going to figure out what we need to do after the first step.
And we'll get more done.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So let's give Andrew some appreciation. Let's give him some appreciation. Woohoo! Thumbs up or whatever we do here, right? Snap, snap, snap. Applause, applause. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Now notice I was a little tougher on Andrew because I think he could take it, right? And he also, we wanted more from him because his story was maybe only about a minute or so. And so I wanted to hear more of those details, right? So first off, where was Andrew and what was he doing? Where was he? Somebody. Anybody?
Graduate school.
Graduate school, UW. That's right.
Grad school.
That's
UW.
right. And what changed for him?
He had to just follow directions.
Yeah, and he had to keep doing it over and over again, and he couldn't see why, right? So fast forward, what's the climax of this story? Learning will always come with mistakes, right? And that,
I know. Way to go, Tamir. That's great.
Right? And we also see here that we need to keep practicing, right? Like we're trying to fight this racism right now and the Black Lives Matter and everything that's happening. So this way that Andrew maybe had a story about being in graduate school at UW, maybe we couldn't relate to that. And when he moved it forward to what's going on with him now, while we might not have a problem with Post-it notes, we can all relate to the fact that we might not be as productive and we have to keep learning the same messages over and over again, right?
Or the embodiment of it. Like I really liked the physicality of Andrew's story.
Yeah.
And that immediately, when you asked your question, Teresa, about like, how does that relate to like the latest? And I'm like, the embodied physical discomfort I am feeling around how much as a white person I keep messing up.
That's right.
You know, when I'm trying.
That's right. And
we gotta lean into that discomfort because maybe if we do it enough times, it will become muscle memory, you know?
Right.
Like, so that's a smoothly executed multi-balcony leap in our own efforts to like say things or do things that actually help our brothers and sisters who are fighting. We're all in this fight together, and it's
that's the thing, this empathy piece, right? I mean, look at what happened most recently. We've been founded, and I'm not going to get on the soapbox right now about politics. Don't even get me started. But this whole activization that happened. Malcolm Gladwell talks about it in his book called The Tipping Point. Not that he talks about the BLM movement, but he talks about there's something that's going to be a tinderbox that's going to tip things over. And sometimes the story will be that. I'm thinking about, George Floyd, of course, in Wendy's, and then, Harvey Weinstein in the Me Too movement and Epstein. All of those things were they're stories that tipped us over the edge to say, okay, we need to change. We need to do something different. We need to have a call to action, some adrenaline here. That's the power of story. So what you've been able to do today, quite honestly, is learn a very, very practical skill. So anybody want to share what's one key takeaway? Wow, that went really fast. What's one key takeaway you have from this session today? Anybody want to jump out there?
Keep practicing.
Yeah, this is Danielle. I just say structure is really important, and the speed of it, because I think I definitely my stories were too long.
Yeah. So we got to edit it down. Okay.
So getting it down, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you, Danielle. Who else?
So this is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
The research that you have and the chart you have on the chemicals in the brain and the neurology is so amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I put together that after being in performance for many, many years and geeking out on neuroscience and geeking out on sales. And I pulled that research together and synthesized it after lots and lots of years. And it really made sense to me. In other words, if we want to move the audience forward, what do we need to do? And we have to know our audience, right? Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else? Sometimes we hear people say that they didn't realize how easy it would be to tell a story, and they think that they can't do it. And a lot of times with the companies and the people that we work with, they think, oh my gosh, you know, I can't tell a story, or I don't have the bandwidth to do that. So knowing that you can do it and that you have tools to do it will take you there. And so for right now, as we begin to end this, I want to leave you with this simple thought, that no matter where you go, there you are. And there are no news stories, just new storytellers. So when you are intentional about the stories you tell, and you know where you want to take your audience through those emotional arcs, you can tell the right story at the right time to the right audience to get the desired results. So if you want to learn more about this, find us on Why Story Works. We have www.whystoryworks.com. We've helped people be able to do simple stories for TED Talks. We've helped people do videos. If, let's say, you're in a transition and you have to do a 30 or a 60-second video for a job review. We've got lots of tools for you, and we'd love to help you. So come and find us, and then for sure, follow us on LinkedIn, and that's my story. So Erin, back to you.
Awesome sauce. Well, thank you so much, Teresa and Erna, for sharing this with us today. I know we just kind of scratched the tip of the iceberg, scratch the surface. Let me mix my metaphors a little bit better there.
Okay.
But if anybody's interested in doing like a deeper dive or additional practice and coaching, I love that Teresa just said maybe videos, like if you're trying to get like your presence out there, maybe on LinkedIn a little bit more. Increasingly, that's useful for job hunting if anybody does find that they're job seeking or in transition, or maybe you're doing some great work outside of work or even at work around activism and like the calls to action and the change that many of us are actually trying to bring forward and help others bring forward in the world. This might be a great tool in the toolkit. So let us know. I'll pop a survey, out to everybody, and it's the same link if you've joined us before, to just let us know how to do more or differently or better of this. And we're going to take the next month or so off. We were going to try and do some Learn a Pazumas in July, but it's the summer, and we're thinking that it might be good to take some time off, and then we'll kind of maybe pivot and be bringing back some of the sponsors and some of the folks who are presenting at Learnapalooza Innovation Jam in September, and maybe showcase them in August, particularly if folks can't join us in September. So thanks again for being willing to play with us, for being willing to experiment. Many of you are repeat joiners, and I just love the camaraderie and the community that we have been able to build together in this virtual space. I look forward to these events. I feel less lonely. I feel less isolated when I see your faces or even just your names. And so just know that what a gift you are and how you show up in this world, and just keep doing what you're doing. And I look forward to the next time that our paths cross, as do, I'm sure, Erna and Teresa. So thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you to Amy and Andrew, who shared a story and allowed us to workshop your story with you. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, folks, find us on LinkedIn, and we'd love to chat more with you. So all of our contact, find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find me on the Why Story Works website. We'd love to hear your stories and hear more from you. Okay?
Okay. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.